Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're back talking all things real estate. And thank you for joining us today. If you haven't, please take a quick sec and like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are putting out regular content and you want to make sure you don't miss anything that we're putting out. So today you can see we have a guest with us. This is David from Olympic Mortgage. And David's here to tell us all about the world of new mortgage laws, rules, changes, how the government is going to save us.
Yeah, a lot of new policy changes came out, so we're going to discuss those.
Yeah, okay. So last week was the big announcement from the Government of Canada that they are loosening insured mortgage rules. Specifically, just for first-time homebuyers, they are now increasing the maximum allowable amortization on an insured mortgage from 25 to 30 years. Previously in August, the change was that they would increase the allowable amortization to 30 years, but just on new inventory, just on new homes.
Okay.
The major change from last week was that they've now expanded that change to all homes. So even used inventory on the market, which brings in a whole bunch more people.
Yeah.
And then the other major change that we saw last week was that they're increasing on insured mortgages only. They're increasing the maximum allowable purchase price to $1.5 million from $1 million.
For an insured.
For an insured mortgage. So to give you some perspective, previous to the change, if you were buying something for $1.5 million, the minimum down payment would be $300,000.
20%, right?
20%.
Yeah.
So now with the new change, the minimum down payment on that purchase is going to be $125,000.
It's a little less than 10%.
Yeah, a little bit less than 10%, exactly. Noteworthy here is that the folks actually can now amortize that if they are new home buyers, first-time home buyers. We can also do that over 30 years. But I don't mean to be the Mr. Grouch, but to qualify for that mortgage of around $1,375,000, income on that file needed is going to be around $320,000 per year.
Got it.
Right, but they got the government and all their policymakers got to hit the news cycle 3 times with the same rule, extending amortizations and then cap it off with the CMHC increase allowable purchase, which really, does this affect first-time home buyers or people entering into the marketplace? Like
yeah. So let's talk about it this way. So if you're buying, let's say you're buying a $500,000 condo, first-time home buyer, what would your and you go with the minimum down payment on that? So what would your payment have been before? Do you know just off the top of your head before what that looks like?
Not the payment, but I can give you an idea as to how this change can affect that person buying that property.
Yeah.
So before the change, let's say that a person making $100,000 per year would be qualified for a $460,000 property purchase with a minimum down payment of $23,000. After the change, amortizing over 30 years instead of 25, that same client is going to qualify for around $505,000. Okay. So it's about a $40,000 increase for that specific client with regards to how much they can qualify for.
Sure.
That doesn't sound bad at all. Going from basically a used low-end 2-bedroom condo in, let's say, Langford, to one that you can pay GST on and buy a new one instead. Yeah. That's pretty much the difference.
Yeah, it will help a lot of people get into just a little bit higher of a price range.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about the monthly payments then? If you're going a higher price range, the monthly payment is essentially going to stay the same.
The monthly payment is going to stay the same, exactly, because that's what they're meaning to do, is that if the person increases their purchase price, but then the amortization is also increased from 25 to 30 years, then that's meant to keep the payment the same.
Got it.
The debt servicing ratios still have to be consistent at 39% maximum.
Got it. But
Yeah.
if you were to say, okay, I was gonna buy something for 500 before.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy something for 500 now. I'm just gonna amortize it over 30 years.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna bring down your
Right.
monthly
Then you're going to
payment.
bring down your monthly payment by about $250. $250.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is kind of interesting how, let's say the last couple years, we've had the rise in interest rates. Like every month we would have a little bit more, 7 consecutive increases in a row. Then we paused, and now we're on the downfall. And we don't give time to things to like take effect. So same thing with like, okay, we're gonna let first-time home buyers do 30-year amortizations. Then 2 weeks later, now it's new construction. 2 more weeks later, now it's everything, right? So it's funny how we just have like this succession policy changes,
Yeah.
one right after the other, hoping to like do something now. And I think we all know it takes time for all of these things
3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
to take
So
some sort of reasonable effect, right?
these new changes only go into effect on December 15th.
Okay,
And
so-
we still, as mortgage brokers, we still haven't been told how these changes are going to take effect, how we should be submitting the applications, and so on and so forth. I don't want to.
This is a welcome to BC. This is how we do things, right? Our regulators will change things, and then we'll figure it out later somehow.
Right.
It's a federal change.
However, this
It's
is a
federal, yeah.
It's a federal change. Yeah.
I'm just so used to BC doing
right.
this to
This
us,
is,
right?
I was going to say, it's the federal government looking, hey, look at what BC's done. Let's do it that way. Roll it out, and then we'll announce how the policy will actually work later.
Yeah, I hate to think that this is just maybe playing politics a little bit with our current federal liberal government situation.
Given the timing.
The timing that maybe they're trying to roll out new policy that we'll cast them in a more favorable light with voters. Sure. But ultimately we have seen our housing affordability decreasing quite a bit over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So obviously they needed to make these changes at some point in time. It's just very timely for them to make these changes to maybe help convince more voters that they're doing what they can to try to get more people into homes.
Yeah, for sure. It's less about the buyers and more about the voters.
Yeah, I mean, maybe yes and no. I think also our economy is heading into, like, we are experiencing now that soft landing that Tiff Macklem and the Bank of Canada was hoping for. And with that soft landing, maybe they see an opportunity here to help those, to change this policy so that it's going to keep our real estate sort of moving at hopefully a slower pace, not at the quick pace that we saw in, from 2019 up until 2022.
Right. Now, so that was last week, and now this week, you were telling us there's been an announcement about the stress test.
Just yesterday, the Office of the Financial Superintendent released the news that now on uninsured mortgages, so not insured mortgages, on uninsured mortgages, clients will not have to qualify on the stress test if they're transferring that mortgage from one lender to another. So what this change in legislation is aimed to do is to just increase competition between lenders. Because if a existing person who has a mortgage has to requalify at a higher rate to move their mortgage to a different bank, then that might cause that mortgage to not qualify at the next bank.
Because of the stress test. Yeah.
And prevent them from
moving.
Yeah.
So which prevents that competition from taking place between the two banks. Now with this change, it sort of levels the playing field a little bit more, and that that existing person who has that mortgage doesn't have to requalify on the stress test. They only have to qualify at whatever the actual rate is that they're going to get.
So this impending mortgage cliff renewal crisis, is this going to give a little bit of a soft landing or a parachute for some people renewing?
Well, I
So
think
if they were used at really low rates. Now they can shop a little bit better.
The mortgage cliff,
qualify?
the mortgage cliff renewal crisis isn't necessarily pertaining to shopping around. It's pertaining to that person's mortgage going from 2% to 6%, or in today's world, in today's rate environment now, from 2% to 4% or 4.5%.
Yeah.
So the cliff that we're talking about is folks who are normally used to the payment at 2%. They're not going to be used to the payment at 4.5%.
So let's say, just hypothetically, let's say I'm paying $2,500 a month at 2%, and I'm going to bump up to 4.5.
Yeah.
What does that number change to?
It's not going to be like, some people might think about that as being double, but it's really not.
Yeah.
Because the way that mortgages work is that mortgages are amortized over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So that changes in interest rates early on in the term don't make a huge effect on the payment. Because at the beginning of the term, when you have 25 or 30 years left, you're only making a very small principal payment.
Right.
But nearing the end of the mortgage, the bigger the mortgage payment is, more of that payment, or the majority of that mortgage payment, will be towards principal. So when people were at 2%,
Yeah.
they were paying 2%, and on a 30-year term, they were paying actually about half of that payment was going towards principal.
Got it.
But nearing the end of the term, if it carried as 2% all the way through, then more of that payment would actually be towards interest. Now, when we flip it over with higher rates,
Yeah.
at the beginning of the term, more of the payment is going to be towards principal and less towards interest. But at the end of the term, there's going to be a greater portion of that payment going towards principal versus interest.
Right.
So the amortization curve is like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why those people who are going from 2.5 to 4, from 2% to 4.5%, might think that their payment will double. Not even close. So that, in your example, if somebody's paying $2,500, their payment might go up by $750.
Okay.
So not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Still a big, for most people out there,
Right.
$750
That's
a
like
month is a big amount.
Yeah, that's like a 30% increase.
But given the economy that we're in, we still have a very high standard of living. People still take trips to Mexico.
Yeah.
People still go buy new cars. People still go to the malls and buy a bunch of stuff before Christmas. So generally, what these interest rates have forced a lot of people to do in this situation is to cut their discretionary expenses.
Right.
That's what goes first.
Yeah.
So the trip to Mexico goes, home renovations get held off.
Sorry, kids, you have to go to public school now.
Sorry, kids, you have to go to public school now, or, okay, maybe you're not going to get new skates this year, we'll do it next year kind of thing, or we won't get the new TV for downstairs right away, we'll hold off on that and save $400 or $500.
Yeah.
So with regards to the renewal cliff, being real, I feel like that was just more of a talking point. But not from you, not from you, because we see it all over the place. The renewal cliff.
We jumped on that.
Trust me,
right?
We've had
Right.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit.
The renewal cliff, but really, it's not as big or as bad as people think it is.
Yeah.
And people are resilient. They're gonna make it work, right?
And Canadians have prioritized paying their house first, right? Like
people are gonna prioritize paying their house versus versus having that extra luxury item.
What is it? 5 million mortgages out there, and there's less than 10,000 delinquencies.
Yeah, it's our foreclosure rate in Canada is extremely low.
Yeah.
Extremely low. We're talking decimal places difference, which is why it's also funny. Like I see in the newspapers, foreclosures have increased by 0.2% or something.
But that's
from 1% to 1.2%, and it's like it's almost a statistical error. It really isn't a huge difference of what's going on. Foreclosures
it's 50
aren't
50 listings in Toronto when they have whatever.
And we
we
went through this on an episode where we broke down what those numbers actually mean.
right.
And where are those foreclosures and everything else, and it was like a throwaway.
Right.
It was really being
It's
used.
very small.
And it was really being used, I think, like you said, as a talking point. It was clickbait. It was, let's get views on our channel. Let's sell our newspapers. Let's get reelected. Oh,
Yeah.
did I say that out loud?
Of course, it's that time of year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I got it.
One actually significant piece of news from a while ago that does indicate that we are in a recession was that business bankruptcies were up by about 30%.
Okay.
And 30% is a lot.
In real numbers.
In real numbers.
Yeah.
So businesses going out of business in this economy was up, I think, I don't remember, I was in the Globe and Mail because I do get the Globe and Mail every day, but business bankruptcies were up by 30%. It affects a lot less people because not a lot of people own businesses.
There's less businesses.
There's less
Yes.
businesses or less people that own businesses.
Yeah.
But 30% more bankruptcies is a huge number.
So this would be from the year past, basically, as a comparison? They're up by
Yes,
30%?
I believe it was year over year. Business bankruptcies were up by about 30%.
So I wonder how that relates to the number during COVID. And I know there was certain supports during COVID, but from memory, when we had sort of like the last crash in 2008, 2009, there were sort of businesses that closed right away. They might have already had financial problems before coming to this point.
Right.
Like they're whatever's going on in their lives, right?
Yeah.
And then I found, this is where some of my listings came from. I wasn't selling any businesses or commercial property back then, but I would be selling their houses. They've used their line of credit, and there would be like an echo effect of business owners that just give up on their business after 2 years. They're like, okay, we got through the hard times. It's too hard. That's it. I want to retire. I want to get rid of it. Let's sell our house, downsize. So I'm curious, is this an echo effect, not necessarily from the market, but from the COVID supports, because it was hard. We had extra costs and lower sales, restaurants, all those things,
Yeah.
right? Just for like an example, I think it was, I don't know the exact number on the island. I think there's like 150 businesses for sale on the island. Like
I don't know.
Two-thirds are like restaurants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
incredible cafes.
Restaurants
all those kind of things.
Restaurants are
That's
an
our
extremely
discretionary-
difficult business.
That's our discretionary spending.
That's
too,
our
right?
discretionary spending.
Sure.
That's probably where a lot of people said, you know, if I can't make my mortgage payment this month, or if I'm close on making my mortgage payment this month, I'm gonna skip going out to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Especially when the restaurants are charging 20-30% more for what they're giving.
Yeah, it's
Right.
And
going
also
out
even,
twice.
and I'm sorry to say, but providing less value when you go to that restaurant and think,
I've heard of
this
this.
just isn't as good.
This is called shrinkflation, I've heard.
Shrinkflation.
You know, we all need a little bit of shrinkflation on our plates sometimes,
Yeah.
right? As we get a little older, it's hard to burn off.
I've noticed actually, like one of my indulgences, Haagen-Dazs.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Haagen-Dazs, I've noticed, has gone from 500 milliliters per bucket to 450.
Same price.
Same price,
Yeah, yeah.
just less amount of ice cream.
Inflation. We could all use
So,
it.
I mean, it's probably good for my waistline, but I'm kind of annoyed that I get less ice cream now.
There you go. That's a good one.
Well, you know, kids always cry when you take their candy away.
Right, and I cry when you take my Haagen-Dazs
There you
away.
go. Well, on that note, thank you all for joining us today. If you got some good information, give us a like for the video, give us a subscribe to the channel, and we'll put David's contact info in the description as well. If you want to reach out to him specifically, maybe you've got some mortgage questions, maybe you have a renewal coming up, or you need some help with a mortgage. He's happy to help you. And if you're talking about buying or selling a business, I can help you with that. Or if we're talking about homes, obviously Patrick and I can help you with both of those as well.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.
Thank you.